So there's already a video explaining the even ones on section 2.4 WSP. We're now going to do the odd ones on this front side and maybe one or two on the back side. But right here, we want to solve, and we want to get, that means get x by itself on one side of the equal sign. And as you can see, you have x's on both sides. You don't want x's on both sides, so you're going to get rid of one of them. You could get rid of the 5x by subtracting 5x, or you could get rid of the minus 3x by doing the opposite, adding 3x. I am going to choose to get rid of that minus 3x by doing the opposite, plus 3x. And what I do to one side of the equal sign, I need to do to the other side of the equal sign. So I'm going to add 3x over here as well. 5x plus 3x is 8x. Bring down the minus 3, bring down the equal sign, and bring down whatever's left over on the right side, which is a 13. So here's your new equation that only has x on the left side of the equal sign. Let's get that x by itself. The goal is to isolate the x. How do I get rid of the minus 3? I do the opposite, plus 3. And what I do to one side, I do to the other, add 3. My new equation is 8x, bring down the equal sign again, 8x equals 16, which is really saying 8 times x equals 16. And to get rid of the multiplication of 8 in front of the x, you're going to have to do the opposite of multiplying, which is a division bar of 8. And what you do to one side, do to the other, giving you your final answer, x equals 2. Let's move on to number 3. Once again, we have a simplified equation. There is no distributive property or combining like terms on the left side or on the right side. This is already simple. So we could move on to the goal to get m by itself on one side of the equal sign. As you can see, m's on both sides. We don't want m on both sides. So let's get rid of one of them. So I would rather get rid of the minus 6m by adding 6m. That way when I add 6m over here, I end up with a nice positive 5m. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add 6m. That cancels out, add 6m, and that will give me a positive 5m. Okay, the equal sign is still here. The 6 is left over on the right side, and don't forget about this 1 that's right here. Now, if you do bring down that 1, it's going to look like a 15m, but remember, when you added negative 1m plus 6m, that's a positive 5m, so you need to put that plus sign in front of the 5. Now we need to get rid of the 1 and the 5. Which one do you get rid of first? You get rid of the 1 first. So we're going to subtract 1. We do to one side, do to the other, subtract 1. You're going to have a new equation that reads 5m equals 5. And that really means 5 times m equals 5. So you divide by 5, divide by 5. And there's your answer, m equals 1. And of course, you could double check your answer by plugging it in right here and right there. So 1 take away 1, 0. Plug in a 1 right there. It's going to be 6 times 1 is 6. 6 take away 6 is 0. So yeah, 0 equals 0. We've double checked it. That is the correct answer. Let's move on to number 5. Actually, number 5 was explained on a previous video, so I'm going to skip it. Let's move on. Here's number 7. Let's do number 7. We're going to simplify the left side because it does have distributive property. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. 3 times negative 3x is negative 9x. And that's as simple as the left side could get. So we're going to take the equal sign and simply bring it down. And on the right side, it's already simplified. You can't distribute, you can't combine anything, so that you just rewrite it. Negative 9x minus 4. So we have the left side simplified, the right side simplified. Let's worry about the goal of getting x by itself on one side of the equal sign. And as you can see, we have x's on both sides. So let's get rid of one of them. I'm going to get rid of the minus 9x by adding 9x. And what I do to one side, I do to the other side. I add 9x. And that also eliminates. So the x's disappear. And what am I left with? Well, I'm left with the equal sign. And I have a negative 6 on the left side of the equal sign and a negative 4 on the right side of the equal sign. Now, we all know that that's impossible. That's a no-no. Negative 6 does not equal negative 4. So we say no solution. There is no answer to this problem. Moving on. Number 9, we're going to simplify the left side first or the right side, whatever you want. I'm going to go with the left side. I'm going to distribute 9. 9 times 4b, that is a 36b. 9 times negative 1 is negative 9. And that is all I could do on the left side. Let's go to the right side and distribute as well. 2 times 9b, that's 18b. And then 2 times 3, that is a positive 6. And of course, there's an equal sign separating my left side from my right side. Now that it's already simplified, there's no more parentheses, we've distributed. Now we could worry about getting b by itself on one side. I am going to choose to get rid of this 18b by subtracting it and subtracting it. So that's what I'm going to do. Subtract 18b, subtract 18b. What you do to one side, do to the other. 36 take away 18 is 18, and we're talking about b's here. Bring down the minus 9, bring down the equal, and bring down the 6 that's left over on the right side. From here, we have a two-step equation. You want to get b all by itself. That's what's important. 18's with the b. 9 is all by itself, so get rid of the 9 first before the 18. How do you get rid of that 9? By adding 9, the opposite of minus 9, which is add 9. Now you do to one side, do to the other. You're going to end up with a new equation that reads 18b on the left side equals 15 on the right side. What does this really mean, 18b? That really means 18 times b. So the way to get rid of the multiplication of 18 is to do the inverse of multiplying, which is dividing by 18. That'll cancel it out, and what you do to one side, do to the other. And since you can't really divide 15 by 18, that is your answer. b equals 15 over 18. However, you could reduce 15 and 18 both by 3. So if you reduce both by 3, you're going to end up with a 5 on top and a 6 on the bottom. Therefore, the answer is 5/6. Let's move on. Number 11. The left side is already simplified. There is no distributed property. There is no combining like terms. The right side, we do have distributed property. Now, some people get confused with this because there's only a minus sign in front of the parenthesis. So you could consider it a -1 and distribute the -1, like -1 times x will be a -1x, or a -1 times 4, which will be a -4. Or you could just distribute that minus sign, and that will be placed in front of x as a minus x, and in front of the positive 4, which is just going to be a -4 as well. Either way, that's the signs change. Bring down the 2 that's in front, and you have those 3 terms. So we have distributed the minus sign. Now we could combine like terms, and we're going to combine the numbers with the numbers. So combining the 2 and the -4, you have $2, you owe $4, you're still going to owe 2 of those dollars. I am going to place this negative x in front. So I'm going to put the negative x in front. I want to bring down the equal sign. And on the left side, like I said, there's nothing to do. So I'm just going to bring that down, -5x minus 10. So here's my new equation in blue. I want to get x by itself, but I have x's on both sides of my equal sign. So I need to get rid of one of them. I'm going to get rid of the -5x this time by doing the opposite, plus 5x. And what I do to one side, I do to the other, plus 5x. Of course, you have to add it with the other x's. So -x plus 5x, that is 4x's. Bring down the -2. Bring down the equal sign. Bring down the -10. There's your new simplified equation with x only on the right side. So we want to get x by itself on the right side. We get rid of the -2 first by adding 2 and adding 2. Your new equation is going to be a -8 equals 4x. So for my final step, I need to get rid of that multiplication of 4 in front of x by dividing by 4. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. So that's -8 divided by 4. That is -2 equals x. But it's better to say x equals -2. So there's your answer to number 11. Number 13, we want to get t by itself on one side. This is already simplified. There is no distributed property. There is no combining like terms. We want to get t by itself. Now, some of us see these fractions and we get freaked out. So let's get rid of those fractions by multiplying everything by the LCD. In this case, the denominator is 2. If you multiply everything by 2, it'll get rid of all fractions at the same time. That times 2, even this -t times 2, that 3 times 2, and the fraction also by 2. So when you multiply a fraction by its denominator, it eliminates and you have no more fraction. It's a nice, beautiful 5t. And then over here, we have -t times 2. That'll be a -2t, -2t. And we have the equal sign that comes down. We have 2 times 3, which is 6. And over here, the 2's cancel, and you end up with a positive 3t left over. So plus 3t, plus 3t. So here's our new equation. I apologize for the t's, they look weird, but if I leave it like that, it looks like a plus sign, so that's my weird t. So we have gotten rid of the fractions. Now we got to make sure that it's a simplified equation. Is there any distributive property or combining like terms over here? No. Is there any distributive property? No. But there is combining like terms. They're both t's. So we're going to combine them. And keep in mind that you're on the left side of the equal sign. So you just combine these in your head or on a calculator. 5 take away 2 is 3, and we're talking about t's. So when I combine this one and that one, I get 3t. Bring down the equal sign again, so we have 3t equals 6 plus 3t. So now I want to get t by itself on one side of the equal sign, and t is on both sides. So you don't want it on both sides. Let's get rid of one of them. So let's say I decided to get rid of this 3t by doing the opposite minus 3t. That'll eliminate, and when you do to one side, you do to the other side of the equal sign. 3t take away 3t is nothing. So you really have nothing equals 6. Nothing equals 6. That is impossible. So we say no solution. Just a reminder, if you're working on something and the t's or the x's or whatever variable you're trying to solve, it cancels out and you end up with something impossible, it's going to be no solution. If you end up with something that's always true, like 0 equals 0 or like 6 equals 6, then you would say t equals all real numbers, or you could say infinite solutions, or you could say IMS, infinitely many solutions. Number 15 was explained on a previous video, so we're going to skip it. On this backside, we're only going to do 19. On a previous video, we had question 17 explained, and I also believe 21 explained, so 19 is the only odd one that's missing. We're going to end the video after this one. So right here, you can distribute the 1/2. 1/2 times 5 would be 5 over 2. 1/2 times 2h would be negative 1h. However, if you don't want to distribute a fraction, which a lot of times we don't want to distribute a fraction, we could get rid of the fraction. We could get rid of any fraction by multiplying everything by the denominator of the fraction that you want to get rid of. So in this case, we need to multiply everything by the denominator 2. So if you put times 2 and times 2, that'll eliminate the fraction, and you'll have the 1 left over. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wait a minute, you said multiply everything by 2. So why are we not multiplying the 5 times 2 and the 2h times 2? That's a good question. The reality is, whatever you do to this outside term, because distributive property is going to happen, whatever you do to this outside term, it's like if you did it to these inside terms. So it would be incorrect if you actually multiplied 5 times 2 and 2 times 2 and the 1/2 times 2. That would be incorrect. Just whatever you do to this outside fraction, it's like if you already did it to these inside guys. So you are not going to multiply these guys by that denominator 2. It's kind of like if the parentheses protects these guys, right? Anyway, so what do we really have left? We have a 1 parenthesis 5 minus 2h. And when you distribute that 1, it doesn't change anything. It's still going to be 5 minus 2h without parentheses. Bring down the equal sign, and on the right side, the 2's canceled out, and you have an h left over. That's a pretty simple equation. You have h's on both sides, so let's move them to one side. I am going to choose to add 2h to move it over to the right side, add 2h. That way I'll end up with my equal sign. I'll end up with a 5 on the left side and a 3h on the right side. For my final step, I need to get rid of the 3 in front of h. That's really saying 3 times h, so the opposite of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. That eliminates. Your answer is 5/3 equals h. 5/3 equals h, or better said, h equals 5/3. h equals 5/3. Now, that is the correct answer, and I would normally leave it as a improper fraction like that, 5 over 3. However, the answer sheet on your worksheet shows it as a mixed number. What they did was they actually did 5 over 3, which is 5 divided by 3, and they multiplied 3 times what gets you close to 5 without going over. That would be a 1. Okay, so that's 3, and the remainder is 2, and we always put the remainder over the original divisor, which is 3. So they actually wrote it, instead of 5/3, they wrote 1 2/3. So 5/3 is the correct answer. I would like it to leave it like that, but the worksheet says 1 2/3. So don't get freaked out. 5/3 just becomes 1 2/3. Improper fraction turns into a mixed number.